Hello and welcome to Core Women. My name is Dr. Summer Watson, and I'm the founder of Core Women, and I'm also an empowerment strategist for women. So if you're listening to this podcast to delve more into empowerment strategies, well, you're here for the right reason. However, Core Women was also developed because it's a special place that provides a unique idea of home for the hearts and souls of women. It's a place for us to share our strength, energy, wisdom, and authenticity. It's a place for women to find support and strategic empowerment ideas that will help support their lives.
Welcome, listeners. Don't touch that dial. I'm not a voice you're accustomed to hearing, but you are in the right place. Today, the Core Women podcast would like to recognize and take time to celebrate the 50 podcast episodes it has posted in the last year. Yes, 50 episodes, which means that 50 women have shared their dreams, challenges, successes, and words of wisdom with the world. If you haven't had the opportunity to get to know these incredible women, please take the time to listen to their journeys. I'm Erin Sanchez of Candidly Erin, a blog for all things personal branding and communications. And in a fun turn of events, I'll be interviewing the founder of Core Women, Dr. Summer Watson. Welcome, Dr. Watson, and let's get right to it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for doing this, Erin. I'm so pleased to be with you today.
I'm so excited to be doing this, first as a guest on episode, 18, and now coming full circle and getting to interview you. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So tell me, because I always love to know about people's origin stories, what is the Core Women origin story?
Well, it started almost to this day a year ago. And it was just something that came to me as I was vacationing. I took some time away from the DC area where I live now, and I went back home to my state of origin, which is California. And I met with three of my girlfriends who have been a part of my life since I've been in college. And they mean so much to me. And we finally had the opportunity to get together in Newport Beach. And we were spending a long weekend together. And as we did that, we just talked, we laughed, we had fun, we had some wine, we had some whiskey, we just had a lot of laughs. We had a really great time. And it wasn't necessarily about going out to the dinners or, it was just about getting together. And as I watched one day, as we sat in the living room, this beautiful space in Newport Beach, I watched my girlfriends and I looked at them and I thought, wow, does everybody have this? Does everybody have a core group of friends, a core group of women friends that they can tell their stories to? They can just be so connected and they can trust one another and really just count on one another. And I thought to myself at that moment, what can I create to give this to other women as well? So I created Core Women. And when I did, I thought about the name. Why would I name it Core Women? And do I want to name it Core Women like, your core group, CORE? I want to name it something different? And I thought, no, I want to call it Core with a K because it's an acronym for how do we as women kinetically connect? How do we, through our movement, through our busy lives, how do we actually connect through that process? And then how do we organically learn from one another? And then how do we reshape our lives through diverse interaction? And then how do we energize one another to promote change? And so as I started developing Core Women, I thought to myself, what is it that I'm going to do to bring women together? What can I do to create change? What can I do to bring them into the fold of this company and really lift them up, inspire? And what I've learned is not only am I doing this, but they're inspiring me every single day. Women inspire me. I feel so empowered by what I'm doing. And so through that process, through that weekend, that's where the idea came from. And I'm so happy that I had the opportunity to just sit back and watch my friends engage and talk and learn and just connect and be so close to one another and just engage. And it felt so good. And it felt so good to come out of there with something that I really was inspired by, what I was really energized by, and thought, this is going to happen. This is absolutely going to happen. I'm going to strategize about this. I'm going to put this together, and it's going to develop. And it has. I've now have 50 podcast episodes. I've made 3 films, and I'm publishing a book. It's been amazing. It's been an amazing ride.
It's so amazing. I love hearing that story because, as you know, from our previous conversations, I do have that group of women, a couple of friends that I met in grad school, and we make a concerted effort every single month to get together. Catherine,
yes.
Who's in that group. And it's so, so very important because I didn't always have that. And having that, it does make a huge difference, just other people to listen to inspire you, to bounce ideas off of. So I think you've just done such an amazing thing. And when you say, your mission was to bring women into the fold, like that shows through in everything that you do. Just everything is about that community. And I just really admire that about you and about Core Women. So I love it.
I appreciate that. And, you bring up a really valid point, Erin, in that you have that core group and you didn't used to have it. And I have that core group. However, this is the deal. Like, I had a mom that I grew up with, of course, and she was a real important part of like that whole foundation of growing up. And yet when I went to college, there was some separation, physical separation, also some emotional separation, because she went on her own path and her own journey. It wasn't necessarily a great journey at that point. And so the connection we had was kind of lost because of her choices that she made. But I went back to the women that I had that connection with in college, and they always were that foundation. They remained that foundation for me when my mom was taking her own hiatus from being a mom. And and that was tough. But to have that core group of women, I think, then my grandmother passed away and I was close to her in a different way. And she was always that rock where you could go, ask her some questions and she'd tell you like it was. It's like, very straight with you. She was one of those old school gals where it was like, this is the way it is, honey, and you're going to have to make a decision. Do this or do this, but it doesn't go both ways necessarily. And you're going to have to work it out or you're just going to deal with it, so it was pretty straightforward. And I didn't mind that, at times, because sometimes you just need that. You need somebody to be very concrete like that, And
absolutely. And I think that's what is so great about Core Women is that not everyone has that group of women, or maybe they did at one point, they don't anymore because they've lost it for whatever reason, or they're seeking their next group, and they can find that through engaging with what you do through Core Women.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I hope to continue that process as I grow Core Women with more women, and this isn't about isolating men. It's more along the lines of creating a safe place for other women. And, I really, when I did this, the idea really came from that weekend. And I thought I need to stay with the whole idea of how this blossomed, how this was created, the foundation of this whole company. And so it's not like men haven't come to me and have said, I want to interview with you. And I would love to interview with them, but I really, really, really wanted to keep it for women, a special place for the hearts and souls of women.
Yeah, no, I completely understand where you're coming from. And you are a very, embracing, as we've talked about, person. So it's absolutely not about excluding anyone. It's just about creating that special place. Yeah. Right. So I would love to hear, because this is your 50th podcast episode, and that means you have interviewed all these amazing women. What have you learned from all of these guests that you've featured, from country singers to authors to marketers and beyond?
Oh my gosh. It is so amazing what I have learned. I've learned that they each have their own unique path, their own unique journey. I've also learned about, their challenges, their successes, how they perceive failure and resiliency. Some of the key concepts that I've learned and how they perceive those concepts are about resiliency, bravery, authenticity, kindness, willing to be a part of something very special. And what I've learned most is that if you go out and ask somebody to be a part of something that's important to you, many times they're going to say yes. And that is exactly what happened when I asked those 50 women to be a part of the Core Women podcast. They said yes. They were willing to tell their stories of challenge, adversity, overcoming it, resiliency, of kindness, of being caregivers, from musicians to authors to directors to people that run big corporations to doctors to you name it, dentists, veterans. Mm-hmm. They've all told their story, and they all have a story, and each and every one of those stories is special. And I do hope that people who are listening to this today will go back and listen to those stories and their journeys, because they're full of wisdom. They're full of great ideas and strategies about how they went about their journey. And I think they're so rich in detail. So absolutely go back and listen to those stories, because those women are opening up their hearts to you and telling you a little bit about themselves.
Absolutely. I love so many of the interviews that I have listened to, and we've talked about this, and you know me, you don't have to convince me that stories are so important, and everybody has a story, and there's something to learn from every single story. And I always say it doesn't have to be some big hero's journey. It can just be a small lesson that makes somebody else have an aha moment, or a, oh my gosh, me too, and just feel connected, which just so happens to be one of your key sort of philosophies with Core Women. But
right.
I love that so much.
And it's funny that you just said the term me too, because I do want to mention something here. One of the whole ideas behind Core Women was, when I was developing this, I realized that there is that Me Too movement. However, one of my issues with that is many times it's a lot of the marches, and it's a lot of, at this time of year, we're going to do this, but what happens the rest of the year? What happens right when there's no march? Where are the conversations, and how are they coming along, and how are we still raising awareness as a group? And I think that's something that I also wanted to continue to do throughout the year. I wanted to continue to have these conversations with women and bring up these important subjects that are important to them, things that get lost, so we continue to make forward momentum.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Not anything wrong with different, movements and things, but what happens the rest of the year, that's so interesting. And speaking of the rest of the year, and you talk about all these challenges that women share on your podcast or in your films. What has been your biggest challenge this year as the owner of Core Women?
Well, that's a really good question, Erin. And I'd have to say that my biggest challenge is time. I just don't feel like, and let me explain this. I don't feel like there's ever enough time to develop and create and do all that I want to do. Because when you have a startup, it's you. It's you doing the marketing and the strategy and the programs, development of content. You're doing it all. And on top of that, there are things that I'm creating, like the podcast, like the films, like the writing a book. And really, to be able to do all of that in a year is amazing, but I still want more time.
Yeah. I think that most people, most business owners do.
Right.
Definitely.
So you tend to work around the clock, and time is so important, because you need to find time for yourself, your own health and wellness, but you also need to make sure that you're strategizing about your company, about your programs, about your projects, about what you want to accomplish. Because if you don't, it's going to be difficult to accomplish those goals. And so for me, that was a challenge, because I'll work myself and work myself and work myself. And I tend not to pull back away from the desk or away from a project. And so what that means is that I'm working probably 16 hours a day. I'm working till 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting up and starting all these projects. And so I think for me it's time, but for now, it's me really strategizing about how I best utilize my time.
I know sometimes, because I'm on the West Coast and you're on the East Coast, and I'll message you or email you thinking, you'll get it the next day, and you're replying, and I'm like, isn't it 1 o'clock in the morning for summer?
That's early, Erin. So, that's early.
Yeah.
That's early for me. It's usually 3 or 3:30 that I'm finally like, okay, now it's time to rest.
Yeah.
Right? So
I have been there. I try not to do that anymore, even if it means some things have to be sacrificed. But I do understand. I mean, in the early years of a business, it does take that, because like you said, you have to do big picture, which is strategy. Like what do I want, big picture, and what are the things that I need to be doing, to move the needle. And then you have to dive into all of the little minutia and detail work that's like, well, I have to actually create all of these assets and things that are going to, contribute to the big picture. So it's definitely a challenge, and one I understand well. So hopefully you can, find a way to strike a bit of a better balance and,
well, it's
going
always
forward. But
I've always been, somewhat of a workhorse, a workaholic. I don't, whatever you want to call it. And late nights are my thing. I am not an early morning person. If I have to do it, I will. But I used to, working in hospitals and clinics, carry a phone and be on. I could not turn it off. It had to be on 24/7, even when I was getting my hair done or that massage or whatever, or I'd have to be at the hospital at 1 o'clock in the morning and be back there at 6:30. That's kind of the life you live, as doing clinical work in a facility like that, in a hospital. So it's kind of a routine that I've had for years now. So
so it just works. Yeah, it works for you. That's great. And I do understand. I'm more creative at night, and that's one of the challenges, because you're like, wait, I have this awesome article idea, and then it's 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right. I get it.
Okay, so time has been your biggest challenge of the past year, but you've also had some pretty cool wins, and I'd love to know, what has been one of your most notable successes?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think there are many, and I'm going to mention them. First of all of the women that have accepted the invitation to be on the Core Women podcast was a win for me. That's always a win for people to accept an invitation to tell their story, to be vulnerable. That's a huge win, because what they may or may not be aware of is that they're speaking to somebody else. They're inspiring somebody else. They're helping somebody else through their journey. And some people want to offer that information. Some people might want to open themselves up to that, and others may not. And for all those women that have graciously accepted the invite to be on this podcast is a flippin' huge win for me. Like, that was so awesome and so fulfilling for me. All those yeses, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Seriously, 50 yeses, that's fantastic. So that was a huge win. And so inspiring. And the next was the 3 films that I created over this last year. Amazing. I was able to go to New York and film with a bunch of women there. I was able to go to Los Angeles and film with several women, to include yourself. And talk about, our journeys and how we come together as women, and what other women inspire us, and how we're giving back to community. And I was also recently able to do that in Nashville, and just as of yesterday, put out the film and offer that to community and say, hey, listen, these women are talking about their journeys. They're talking about how we can come together and lift each other up and make a difference, and how we're making a difference together and apart in community. And that is so important. And so that was a huge win. And then third is I was able to co-write a book this year, and that's coming out late July, early August. And I'm so excited about that. And actually, there's one more thing. Which you are actually involved in, Erin. It's our Purpose and
That's
Impact
right.
Live workshop in San Francisco, in the San Francisco Bay Area, that's coming up in August. And I'm so excited about that.
I am ecstatic to be involved in that. And I'm so excited. And I'm also very, very excited for just to go back to your book. I know we can't, disclose anything, but I am very much looking forward to reading that. So congratulations on all of your successes. You know how I feel about the topic.
I know, it's such an interesting topic. And I absolutely can't wait, because I think we're actually getting to look at the cover this week, like our cover options this week. And I am absolutely thrilled.
Cool.
So fairly soon there will also be a cover reveal. So at that point, people will know what the title is.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Maybe, well, hopefully it'll be around the time of the release of this podcast, but either way, people will definitely know and probably have access to the book by the time our event rolls around.
Yes, they will.
Yeah. So yeah. Cool. No,
absolutely.
So exciting. Congratulations on everything, Summer.
So there has been so many successes. So thank you for asking that question, because I am so thrilled about how this last year has gone for me. And one of the things is action creates action. So if you start creating action, more action is to come.
That's very true. Very true. And I feel like inspiration comes from taking action as well. Like sometimes you can just sit there and go, oh, I don't really know like what I'm going to do, what am I going to write about or post about, or, whatever the case may be for your particular situation, but just start doing, and then the ideas start flowing. So exactly. That's very smart. Those are very smart words of wisdom, but I do have, I want to know some more words of wisdom. So for our last question, I would love to know what words of wisdom you would offer to listeners today.
Well, I love this question. And I ask this in every single one of my podcast episodes, because every woman that has been on here has offered so much wisdom. And that last question, they just sum it up, and it's so well summed up by each person. And I love it. And I learn something from each of them every single time. And so many things that I've learned throughout my life, not just with doing this business, but throughout my life is, sometimes you just got to take a chance and have courage. And I don't say, I just don't want to put out there, the wisdom is have courage, but there is a strategy to that. There is something really deep for each of us in relation to what that means. What does it mean to have courage? What do you fear? And you have to think about that, but not get caught and perseverate on the fear. Because once you start doing that and you start perseverating, that means that you're just thinking about fear, being fearful, rather than strategizing about how you can overcome that fear, how you can be more resilient, how you can actually create action and movement to meet your goals. And so the wisdom here is, yes, be courageous, but figure out what that means to you. Figure out what your fear is, and turn the negative thinking into some positive thinking, because the more that you have negative thoughts, that's creating somewhat of a brain map of negativity. And you don't want to get stuck there. You really want to move forward and really think about, how can I do this? What steps do I need to take? Do I personally need to take to fulfill my goals? Number one. And two, make sure you're around people that lift you up and that believe in you, because that makes a huge difference, who you're around. But more importantly, believe in yourself. If you're having a down day, make sure that, and this is why Core Women's here, if you don't have network, contact Core Women, because your network is here. We're open to you. We are available, and we want to be connected with you, because we want to inspire, encourage, and lift you up. And so, again, take a chance. Figure out why you're fearing or why you're fearful. Do not perseverate on the fear, but figure it out and have the courage to figure it out and move forward. Create some goals, and then don't focus on the negative. Try and really stop that negative thought process if you can. And remember, there's always somebody out there for you. Again, listen to these podcasts, because they have so much wisdom, and people have overcome fear. They had the courage. They had, the strategy, the goals, the wisdom to move forward. So those are my words of wisdom today.
Thank you for sharing that. I absolutely love that, because the word that always comes to mind when I start getting fearful is, and I think you described it exactly as I experienced, which is insidious. It's very insidious. The more I think about the fear, the worse it gets, and you
Right.
just kind of like downward spiral into it. And so I think that is, I mean, like you said, reach out to somebody who can help you strategize what it means to be courageous and maybe take calculated risks. And I think that's where you, Summer, and, Core Women as a business can absolutely make a huge impact on women's lives. So thank you so much for sharing that and sharing your story and just doing what you do. I think it's such a valuable thing.
Thank you so much. And yes, because I do have a background in human services, in psychology, have a doctorate. I decided, to also put that into something, kind of change that around a little bit and not be so clinical and do more coaching. And so with that, I do offer those coaching services, the strategic empowerment coaching services for women. And I am here, to help other women move through their journey, and not be stunted at a certain point in their journey, because we all want to make forward progress, right? Forward movement. And so we're here for you. So thanks for asking me that question, Erin.
Absolutely. And thank you, Dr. Watson, for being a guest on your own show, the Core Women Podcast. And congratulations on your 50th episode. I'm so excited for you.
Thanks, Erin. Thank you so much for being a part of my journey and for hosting today's podcast. Thanks so much.
Yes, it was an honor. Thank you.
If you need a strategic empowerment coach, contact me. If you want to tell your story of empowerment or how you have reconstructed your life to drive change, send me a video or an email of your story, providing permission to use it on my social media platforms. If you want to be featured on my podcast, reach out to me at info@corewomen.com. I want to hear from you and to get to know you. You are now part of the Core Women home. Let's get to know each other. Let's learn from one another. Please follow Core Women on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Please let your women friends know about this podcast. If you write about Core Women in your social media posts, please hashtag Core Women. This is all about women. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about Core Women, and please stay tuned for continued growth of the Core Women movement. Let's grow and drive change together.